Alaska's wilderness is beautiful, but it guards old secrets beneath its glaciers, forests, and fog-shrouded coves. From abandoned villages on the Kenai Peninsula to World War II ruins swallowed by rain and moss, the last frontier is littered with true accounts of people who vanished or returned forever changed. I still smell the spruce pitch when I think about Portlock. In '49, the fish canning outfit paid me double to keep the sawmill running after most of the village had emptied out. Folks whispered about Nantinak, an ape thing that prowled the cliffs. But I'd slept beside grizzlies before. Superstition didn't pay for boots. The first night alone, I heard the drag. Something heavy scraped over the Black Rock beach, louder than the tide. I found nothing but a torn otter pelt and footprints, wide as frying pans, toes splayed like a man sprinting barefoot. I measured one at 22 inches. I told myself a brown bear could step wide on mud, but bears don't walk upright that clean. 3 evenings later, a storm pinned me in the cook shack. Rain hammered the tin roof and the generator quit. I worked by lantern light when the knock came. 5 sharp raps on the wall, too high for any human hand outside. "Who's there?" I shouted, shotgun trembling. Wind howled back. At dawn I followed a trail of broken alders up the ravine. Midway, the brush opened into a slaughter pen. 6 silver salmon strung on branches, heads twisted off. Their bodies were still wet, gleaming in the weak sun. Something had made an offering. I radioed the cannery, "Pull me out." The boss barked that weather grounded every plane until Thursday. That night I bolted the doors and waited, lamp oil burning low, mind picking at every creak. Near midnight, the drag started again. Closer, slower, like granite on ice. The smell hit next. Wet dog and sour moss. Boards bowed inward. One hinge shrieked. I threw the shotgun blast through the wall, and whatever lurked outside roared, deep, chesty, furious. Footfalls thundered back into the timber, shaking dishes from shelves. At grey first light, the beach looked like a battlefield. My shell casings lay in shredded cedar planks, but there were no blood drops. Only those colossal tracks, leading up the slope toward the abandoned church. I followed once more, and there it was on the doorstep. My own ripped shirt nailed to the door with a harpoon spike. A warning. The rescue float plane finally skimmed in at low tide. The pilot scanned my white face and didn't ask questions. As we lifted off, I saw the tiny church recede into mist, just in time to glimpse a dark figure step from the tree line, tall enough to brush the eaves. The radios in town crackled all summer with rumors, but nobody ever logged Portlock again. I still flinch at the smell of spruce. Urban exploring felt harmless until Whittier. My buddy Len and I ferried over on a dare. Spend one night inside the Buckner building. The World War II concrete labyrinth locals call the city, under one roof. By dusk, the tourists were gone. Tunnel gate locked behind us. Flashlights knifed through moldy corridors. Graffiti ghosts, white spray paint faces, watched from every corner. On the 3rd floor we found the old cinema, torn seats, a tattered Betty Grable poster waving in the draft. Len fired up the Spirit Box app on his phone. "Any vets still here?" Static. Then a low, garbled voice. "Cold. Can't leave." My fingers prickled. "This is staged audio," I muttered. We bivouacked in a gutted barracks room. Wind moaned through bullet holes in the blackout shutters, producing a miserable, human-sounding whistle. I drifted off, until a boot stomp echoed in the hallway. 1 heavy step, then 2. Len sat bolt upright, lips forming. "Did you hear that?" "Probably a seal outside," I whispered, but my pulse thudded. We pushed the door open. The beam caught a soldier, full field greens, bayonet fixed, standing at the end of the hall. Except he was translucent, edges shimmering like heat mirage. The rifle butt slammed the floor once, twice. "Sir?" Len croaked. The figure raised one finger to its lips, "Shh," and dissolved into dust motes. We bolted, stairwells spinning. Concrete muffled our footfalls until we burst into the mess hall. There, tables were moved, arranged neatly in ranks, trays set with rusted cutlery we hadn't noticed earlier. A single tin cup rattled across the floor and settled at my boots. Outside, midnight sleet stabbed our faces, but we kept running. The mountain tunnel gate wouldn't open until morning, so we sheltered under a dripping culvert. Len replayed the spirit box recording. Now it clearly said, "Post still active." At dawn, we trekked back inside to grab our packs. Every table, chair, and tray was gone, as if 70 years of decay had returned in hours. Only our footprints disturbed the dust. I quit exploring after that. Sometimes, when rain hits my air conditioner just right, I still hear the bayonets thud, counting cadence for soldiers whose war never ended. Bush flying pays in solitude, and I liked it that way. The Cessna 185 had just cleared Denali's shadow when the panel lights flickered. My compass spun like a carnival ride, north, west, south, then dead. I tapped the glass, still gyrating. "Anchorage Center. This is November 7-6 Fox," I radioed. "Instrument failure. Request vectors." Only static hissed back. The sky ahead darkened, though it was barely noon. Cloudless, but sun snuffed out as if a hand cupped the world. A cobalt curtain seemed to drape the horizon, swallowing mountains. My altimeter dropped 200 feet in seconds, though the controls were buttery still. Then the humming started. Not engine noise, somewhere outside the fuselage, like power lines vibrating at the wrong frequency. My fillings tingled. A blinding flash, emerald green, erupted over the nose. Instinct yanked the yoke. The plane pitched, and for a heartbeat, weightlessness pressed me into the straps. When the glare faded, everything was normal daylight again. The panel rebooted, compass steady. Only the fuel gauge read the same as an hour earlier. Anchorage Center finally answered, voice strained. 7-6 Fox, we lost you for 45 minutes. You just reappeared over McGrath, like you popped out of nowhere. I checked my watch. It matched their time. No gap. Yet the log timer on the dash was missing 3/4 of an hour. I landed in Nome with half a tank I shouldn't have had, and hands shaking so badly I couldn't sign the fuel slip. FAA investigators chalked it up to electromagnetic interference. Pilots buy me drinks to retell the tale, but I always leave out the last bit. The cabin clock I carried off the plane that day still gains exactly 45 minutes every June 17th at 12:07 p.m., no matter the time zone. I write this by lantern aboard the Prospector's Luck, while the tide claws at the hull. If I perish, let my words warn others. We struck a quartz vein 2 miles up Ruth Creek, same cursed spot Harry Culp's partner fled years ago, babbling of devil creatures. My partners laughed at the legend of the Kushtaka, shape-shifting ottermen, but the forest felt watched from the first axe bite. On the third evening, fog coiled between hemlocks like living silk. I tended the sluice when a child's voice drifted through the vapor. "Papa, help me." The timbre stabbed my heart. My daughter had died of influenza the winter prior. Impossible as ignoring her cry. I stumbled toward the sound until I reached a muskeg pool. Mist parted, and there she stood on the far bank, 6-year-old Clara in her blue Sunday dress. Except her eyes were too dark, pupils wide as the night. "Cross, Papa?" she beckoned. though her lips never moved. The moss trembled under my boot. Then I saw water drip from her hem, though she stood on dry ground, and grey whiskers quivered at the corners of her mouth. Not hair, but otter whiskers. Terror froze me. Behind me branches cracked. I spun to see Alden, one of our crew, mouth slack, stumbling as if mesmerized. 3 tall shapes encircled him, fur slick, arms like men, but faces elongated and grinning. Their chittering language buzzed inside my skull. Alden stepped forward, ankle deep into the bog, and they melted into the fog with him. I ran blind through timber, screams and chirps chasing me to camp. We cast off without Alden. That night his voice called from the riverbank beside the anchored scow. "Let me aboard, the tide's rising." But the figure standing in the moon glint had black, unblinking eyes and a tail curling over the gunwale. We shoved from shore. Dawn revealed claw marks down the hull, as though something tried to climb aboard. I can still hear the kushtaka whistling across the water, mimicking Clara's lullaby. If this journal is found adrift, steer clear of Thomas Bay. The Otter people own those woods, and they steal not just flesh, but memories, wearing them like pelts to lure more souls into the muskeg.